Welcome to Angels, God, and Me, and I'm your host, Mary Amy, coming to you live. I agree with the notion of compassion to all living things. We are all connected. Our actions matter. Karma is a cycle of cause and effect. Virtuous actions create happiness, and non-virtuous actions create suffering. The forces of good and evil are prevalent in our daily lives, yet angels are celestial, immortal beings traveling from the heavens to earth, protecting humanity. Perhaps the conversations of angels with humans throughout history indicate existence. Those saints and prophets speaking of divine visions delivered messages of hope. Truly, with hope, we can endure most anything we encounter. On our show, we have guests, topics related to ethereal beings, dreams, visualizations, meditations, myths, legends, and helpful tips to inner peace. So today we have a guest, Ken Gerhard, world-renowned cryptozoologist, monster hunter of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and the Loch Ness Monster. He'll be with us in a moment. Before that, I want to remind you, I don't know if you realize this, that today is 11/11, and that is actually a significant number. It supposedly is a reminder of angels. It's an angel number, 11/11. Okay, I would like to do a relaxation visualization to clear away negative vibes that you might have left from a lot of this external chaos going on right now. So we're going to clear away unnecessary junk that is not ours, a powerful way to bring whatever we want closer to us. We will create vivid mental images in our mind's eye, bringing positive emotions such as joy, happiness, and hope. Your visualization begins now. Please find a comfortable position sitting or laying down. Begin to relax your mind and body. Let's breathe out old energy. Deeply breathe. We'll do it 3 times. Inhale. Exhale. I'd like you to scan your body for stress or tension from the top of your head, your crown chakra, to the tip of your toes. Now, our intention today is to release negative emotions preventing us from our own personal happiness. I'd like you to imagine that you are in a bright, light, pink bubble of light. The bubble protects you. You feel safe, warm, secure. No one may harm you. The gentle bubble reaches around your head and below your feet. Its power slowly diminishes old thoughts and past mindsets. Now you are on a white, sandy beach with glistening waves rising. You walk the beach. Walking to the water's edge, your feet feel the chill of the water, yet the warm bubble allows you to release any pain you've experienced. As you move, the bubble remains surrounding your body, filling your bones, flesh, and organs. Let's give permission to the bubble to fill your cells with positive energy. Your thoughts recall the last person that injured your heart. You release the memory. You pause. A chance to forgive them. Letting go into the sea, you breathe out all the pain. You can speak out the pain. Now less unnecessary hurt to hold on to is gone. There is a room now in the bubble for more love. Your heart grows bigger. The pink bubble filling you up with hope, love, and happiness. The water accepts all you have done today. The sea gives you new choices for your future relationships, career, and self. New awareness of calm and peace. I will count backwards. 3, 2, 1. I hope that helped relax you a little bit today. Now I'd like to share with you, before our guest comes on in a few minutes, I'd like to share with you a Buddhist prayer. I like to say prayers to remind us of good thoughts, and maybe a bit of this will catch in your spirit and you'll bring it with you. Receiving blessings and purifying from the hearts of all the holy beings. Streams of light and nectar flow, granting blessings and purifying. So, today's, and that was from this particular book, Heart of the Wisdom. Today's guest is Ken Gerhard, and he is renowned cryptozoologist. And he actually, I have some art by a guy named Charles A. Guthrie, who had done paintings of Bigfoot, or does paintings of Bigfoot. And you can see. So Bigfoot is a phenomenon known in folklore. The legend of Sasquatch, by many names depending on the language, sightings in Pacific Northwest of a large 6 to 9 foot hairy ape-like creature walking upright, living in the wilderness. Now there's documented over 1,000 sightings, probably more, 1818 to 1980. There's been footprints. This is Charles, whose work this is. Even the FBI looked into Bigfoot. There was famous footage from 1967, which we've all seen before. I don't have a picture of that with me, but anyway, so these paintings are by Charles A. Guthrie, full-time artist, Aliens, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. So our guest today is Ken Gerhard, and he's a well-known, renowned cryptozoologist. Now, cryptozoology attempts to prove the existence of folklore and monsters such as Bigfoot, cryptids. He is the host of television shows and documentaries in search of monsters. For example, Monster Quest, Terror in the Skies, Ancient Aliens. He's famous. And you've probably seen him on the History Channel, the Discovery Channel, National Geographic. And so I would like to welcome Ken. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Mary Amy. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm just as excited probably as the audience because all of these mysteries are so interesting to me. And you're coming from Texas?
Yes, I'm in San Antonio, Texas at the moment.
Well, thank you so much, because I know we have an hour difference, so this is pretty early for you, but it's a good time. You know, people are waking up and maybe catch some info about cryptids. Is that how I say it? Am I saying it properly?
Yeah, you nailed it. Cryptids, that's what we call the topics that we investigate in my field of cryptozoology. We refer to as cryptids, and that could be like Bigfoot, the Yeti, the Loch Ness Monster, Mothman. There's dozens or hundreds of them.
Wow.
Folkloric creatures that might be real. I mean, possibly.
I believe so. I personally believe so. So let's get into it. I understand that you began from the time you kind of were a little boy to love the idea or you pursue monsters. And at 15, you headed out to do research on the Loch Ness Monster. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's true. I grew up as a kid loving animals. I love all animals and creatures, even the creepy crawly ones like spiders and snakes that a lot of people don't like. But and I loved monster movies growing up. So cryptozoology was kind of a perfect synthesis of those two things. And so when I found out about Bigfoot as a kid, of course, I was fascinated and became kind of obsessed with the topic. But I can't emphasize this enough, Mary Amy. You know, for the moms and dads out there, you know, encourage your kids in their passions and their interests, because, you know, I mean, who would have ever thought I'd have grown up to be a real life monster hunter? But it's because my parents, and particularly my mother, was very encouraging of my dream and my passion. And she was a travel agent, so she loved to travel.
Mhm.
And when I was 15 years old, my family went to Loch Ness in Scotland, which of course is allegedly home to the famous Nessie, the famous lake monster or sea serpent of Loch Ness, Scotland. And so when I was only 15 years old, I was up at Loch Ness, and I was trying to be an investigator even at a young age. I had a little movie camera, 8mm, and I'd hike around the lake and try to, you know, hoping I would get some famous footage or film. And I'd interview people that lived around the lake, and, you know, had they had a sighting, and what did they know, and so forth. So I started at a very young age. Honestly, didn't really plan on it being a career. I've been very lucky, very blessed. And I love what I do. It's very fascinating work.
That's amazing. So I'm still curious about this encounter. Did you see anything, or did you have people tell you that this was a real thing?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see anything. Didn't film anything, obviously, but most of the people that I spoke to that live around the lake were adamant that there is some unknown beast living in the lake. And it's interesting, a lot of our cryptids, you can often find ethno supporting or folkloric evidence that go back centuries. And in terms of Nessie, or the Loch Ness Monster, the Scottish people, the Gaelic people, believe in water spirits known as kelpies, water kelpies. And they're shape-shifting types of creatures, but they're often portrayed as kind of like having a head like a horse, which, you know, we can get into this, but a lot of people that report Nessie and other lake monsters describe a horse-like head. I'm not saying they are horses. I'm just saying they look kind of horse-like. Wow. And so they're, you know, going back centuries, there are these beliefs that there was a mysterious beastie in Loch Ness. And talking to the local people there, I mean, they're convinced there's something there. I mean, you know, it's obviously been great for the tourist industry, but that's not why they're pushing it. They're pushing it because everyone knows somebody that, you know, if they haven't seen it themselves, somebody has seen a large animal in the lake, a huge animal in the lake that shouldn't be there. And so it's a great mystery.
Mysteries. I love that. Okay. I read, this is fun. Not fun, but it's actually a little scary. I read about a hairless DNA. They found the DNA, it had the DNA of a coyote and a wolf. And there was evidence in a 2004, you know exactly what I'm talking about, killing at a chicken farm. It was at Puerto Rico?
Well, 2004 was in Texas.
Oh, it was Texas.
But the original sighting started in Puerto Rico in 1995.
Okay. You know what I'm talking about. And then these were, how do you pronounce that?
Chupacabra.
And they were examined, and they were hairless and 40 pounds. And what was that? What was that all about?
Well, that's a pretty complex mystery, but I'm sure many of your listeners have heard of something called the Chupacabra, which in Spanish means the goat sucker. And reports first came out of Puerto Rico in the 1990s of mysterious livestock killings, chickens, goats, rabbits, small animals that were supposedly being exsanguinated, that is, drained of their blood. So we're talking about like a real life vampire type of creature that was coming in the dark of night. And the only sign it left behind were two telltale puncture wounds in the neck, usually. And so, you know, people found out about the Chupacabra starting in the 1990s. It became a worldwide sensation. And the Puerto Rican creature was described as kind of being this reptilian, two-legged reptilian creature with big eyes and spikes on its back. But slightly different in 2004 here in Texas, chicken farmers, as you said, began to experience similar livestock killings. And, you know, you got to keep in mind, chicken farmers are used to dealing with coyotes and bobcats and skunks and other animals that might come in and kill their chickens. That's not that uncommon. But usually when that happens and a predator comes in, it either snatches the chicken and takes it away to eat it, or it, you know, makes a bit of a mess as it's eating it right there in the chicken coop. Well, so this is something completely new that these farmers weren't used to. It's something that would sneak in, drain the blood of the chicken allegedly, and then, leave the body there. So, but then in 2004, and this happened right south of San Antonio, where I live, in a town called Elmendorf, there was a guy named Devin McAnally. He was the first chicken farmer that experienced this. And right around that same time period, he began seeing this odd creature on his property. He described it as having 4 legs, but as you said, it was kind of hairless, bluish gray colored skin. He'd never seen anything like it. And because it was killing a lot of his chickens, about up to 30 some chickens, he did shoot the thing. And but when he looked at the body, he didn't know what the heck he was looking at. It looked like a big rat with fangs. And so he took a picture of it, and he started showing it around to his neighbors. Hey, does anyone know what this thing is? It's been killing my chickens and drinking their blood. And San Antonio, we have obviously a predominantly Mexican American culture here, and it wasn't long before people started saying, that's the Chupacabra, that's what you shot. And so that animal was DNA tested, and the bones were studied, and it turned out to be a dog, a canid, but a very strange looking dog. I mean, almost completely hairless, skin like an elephant, and a hard gray blue, long fangs.
Strange.
And but since that time in 2004, a lot of these animals have turned up in Texas. I've examined the remains of about a half dozen.
Really?
Yeah, and they've all been DNA tested. They're all canids, which again is a scientific way of saying they're dogs, either coyotes or wolf coyote hybrids, or some of them are feral domestic dogs. But why do they look so weird?
Yeah.
And why are they missing their fur, and why are their teeth? All the ones I've studied, they have strange dentition or teeth. And why are they behaving so strangely? Now, it hasn't been scientifically proven that they're drinking the blood. No one's actually documented that scientifically. It's an allegation. But, I've spoken to more than one chicken farmer that's told me that that's what was going on. And I've even investigated similar things in Mexico. This mystery, it's not just in Texas. It's not just in Puerto Rico, but alleged sightings and encounters with the Chupacabra go throughout Mexico and Central and South America, all throughout Latin America. So it's a great mystery. But, the animals in Texas, we know what they are, but we don't know. We know what they are technically. But again, there are a lot of mysteries surrounding their appearance and possibly their strange behavior.
When you went and when you got to take a look at these animals, did you even consider maybe this is a new breed, something that's never been discovered? Was that a possibility in your mind, or were you just kind of already figuring this was just a sick animal? Or
well, those are great questions, and I guess we haven't ruled out anything at this point. They could be sick animals. One theory is that they may have a disease called sarcoptic mange, which is a tiny mite. Sarcoptes scabiei is the scientific name. It's a mite that gets in the skin of dogs, and they scratch and chew their hair out. But usually when that happens, it's in patches. It's not like a uniform thing. And it's possible that there is a mutation going on, because many of the animals I examined had, again, strange features, not just the teeth, but sometimes the legs, the limbs were different lengths. Like their front limbs were shorter, or their, rear limbs were shorter than the front limbs. Some of them had strange growths on their bodies. So one possibility is a mutation, which it could be caused by, ecological stimuli like pollution or, hybridization. And then, there's something, and you brought up a great point, because there's something called speciation, which is when an animal within a certain species or genus begins to develop enough unique traits and characteristics to where it becomes its own species or subspecies. And it's no longer in this group. It's now changed enough, evolved or mutated enough to where it's now, in this group over here. And so, I mean, I tend to lean towards it's kind of a mutation, because, and this is very sad to say, but I've noticed that in a lot of the areas where these chupacabras have been found in Texas, the hot spots are adjacent to coal burning power plants, which I did a lot of research in. Coal burning power plants, they put a lot of bad toxins and sulfur dioxide and mercury and things into the atmosphere. And so I'm not trying to get on a soapbox. I know that's, pollution should be a concern to all of us. Yeah. But potentially that could be what's happening, is that some of the pollution that gets into the atmosphere is altering the DNA or genetic code of these animals. That, that does happen sometimes.
Or they could be zombie dogs, or they could be Dracula dogs.
That's kind of what they are, zombie dogs. That's the way I look at them. So.
Yeah. Let me see if I can pull this up in here. This is actually your book, a cover of your book, which is, I haven't gotten it. I should be.
Sorry, we were hoping. Okay. We were hoping for yesterday, but
I know. But you know what? It's all good. Whatever's meant to be. But do you, in this particular book, can you tell us some of the information that you have in this book?
Yeah, Menagerie of Mysterious Beasts it covers a whole wide range of cryptids that I've investigated. So most people are familiar with Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra. They've heard of those. But what many people don't realize is that there's a whole host of cryptids, that lesser known cryptids that you may not have heard of. Mm-hmm. For example, I've investigated reports of giant monstrous birds called thunderbirds in Native American mythology. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about giant super eagles with wingspans 15 to 20 feet across. So there's a long Native American tradition. Many different cultures, Native American cultures, talk about these giant thunderbirds, and they have folklore and they put them on totem poles and things like that. But there are also modern sightings, and I've interviewed dozens of people, seemingly credible people, that swear they've seen these enormous birds 5 times bigger than any known bird. I mean, just the name Thunderbird stems from the belief that they can actually block out the sun, and they create thunder with the beating of their wings, mm-hmm. And they're often seen on storm fronts. So that's one cryptid.
Wow.
And then there's also mysterious cats, big black cat known as black panthers. Ooh. And the name Black Panther is not scientific. It refers to a giant cat or a large cat with a solid black coloring, which you do have some of those in Africa and Asia. They're called black leopards, melanistic leopards. And you can also have melanistic jaguars in Central and South America. But people are seeing these in the United States. And there should not be any. We have mountain lions and we have bobcats. We shouldn't have any quote unquote black panthers. But a lot of people have described these mysterious cats. And then there are a lot of oddball reports that I cover in the book. Accounts of giant spiders. I mean, like house cat sized spiders in North America. They're rare, but they do happen. Giant snakes. Monster snakes. I know. Great. Hopefully, I'm not scaring any of your listeners.
I think it's so cool.
I mean, giant frogs. A lot of giant.
What do we know, really? What do we really know?
Yeah. So I mean, these are, a lot of them are based on my own personal investigations. People I've interviewed that swear they've seen these things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the book covers kind of a wide variety of topics within the field of cryptozoology. Now on the cover there, it looks like kind of a werewolf type thing. Yeah. I guess there's a little bit of that in there too. I've investigated real life werewolf type things, but
really,
yeah. But the book is here in North America, for example, there have been many alleged modern encounters with something called the Dog Man. And this is, it's basically, in my opinion, it's kind of a new take on werewolf because, man-like features, dog-like, wolf-like features. There's a lot of debate that goes on. But any of your listeners that go on social media, it wouldn't be hard to find one of these dog man. There's a lot of groups now where people get together and talk about their sightings and stuff. So it's pretty scary stuff.
What does the Dog Man do? I mean, does he come out at night? What's the story on the Dog Man?
Well, sightings are all the time, but typically at night. The Dog Man is described typically as having wolf-like or dog-like features in terms of its head, being hair covered and so forth, but standing up on two legs like a human, which is pretty scary. And
That's scary.
they're usually described as being at least as man-sized or as big as Bigfoot. And they're hyper aggressive. People that have encounters with Dogman are very scared. It chases people. It scratches their cars. It's I don't know. I view it as, if Dogman is real, I don't view it as a flesh and blood animal, which is what cryptozoology is based on, is unknown animals, or that concept. But Dogman seems to, even though it has animal-like features, in my opinion, it seems to be more of a metaphysical type thing, some type of, and that's not really what I do. I'm not necessarily a supernatural investigator, but sometimes we get these cases. Crossover cases, kind of on the fringe. But if your listeners are open-minded to the possibility, and I'm sure they are, that there are sort of spectral, non-physical things in our reality that can sometimes take on a physical form or presence, some type of manifestation or apparition. But and I have to say that because the descriptions of Dogman just don't fit into the paradigm of our natural scientific world as we know it. It just doesn't make sense from that perspective. But it's weird, and a lot of people claim they've seen this thing. So
before we move on from, I wanted to just show everyone this book. All my little logos covering it, and that that looks like a great read as well. And is that like a dictionary about Bigfoot? Is that it's does it talk about like sightings and so forth, that type of thing?
Yeah, it's my newest book, The Essential Guide to Bigfoot. And you're close. It's a primer. So basically, if anyone is interested in the subject of Bigfoot, the iconic mystery, it kind of gives you an introduction to the subject and presents you with the most accurate, objective information that covering all aspects of the phenomenon. What is Bigfoot? What does it look like? What is the best evidence that we have? And it goes into a lot of the biology, because those of us that investigate Bigfoot, most of us think it's a real flesh and blood animal, a man-like animal, which we refer to as a hominid, or a great ape, if you will. So, we have to, if it is, you have to answer certain zoological questions, like how big is it? What does it eat? Where does it go? How many are there? I talk about the history of the sightings, and you mentioned like the famous film from 1967, the Patterson-Gimlin film, where this amazing footage of a Bigfoot walking across a creek bed in Northern California. And then there's a chapter on sightings, and there are thousands of documented sightings of Bigfoot, Mary Amy, but I tried to highlight some of the most credible ones, in my opinion. There's a chapter on my own research where I talk about, because I've been very blessed to have investigated Bigfoot all over North America, from Alaska to Florida.
Wow.
Washington.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's a little bit of everything. But the main thing I want to emphasize, because there's a lot of information on the internet and elsewhere talking about Bigfoot, but what I found through the years is that a lot of that information, unfortunately, is a little bit inaccurate. There's a lot of misleading statements, misinterpretation, hoaxes, where a lot of people are trying to trick you and give you, excuse me. So I think Bigfoot is important enough as a subject that, and it's such a remarkable prospect. I mean, could there really be these giant, hairy, man-like creatures out there? So if there are, I think people need to have the best, most accurate data or information to form their own opinion, whether they think this thing might actually exist or not. So,
okay, let's say we read your books, and or we just go out on our own to do some kind of field research. And what would you tell us to bring, or we would need as far as equipment? What would this entail?
That's a great question. Well, one of the things I write about in my book, The Essential Guide to Bigfoot, is that your worst day of doing cryptozoology field research is really a nice camping trip. So there's never a bad day out in the field. Just, if these things exist, they must exist in remote wooded wilderness areas where people don't go. And that's where a lot of the sightings take place. So you're going to go out camping in the woods, for example, looking for Bigfoot. You want to make sure you have all of your camping survival gear, bring lots of water, food, tents and sleeping bags and flashlights and things like that. You also, looking for Bigfoot, we're trying to get definitive evidence. We're trying to find definitive evidence these things exist. So we're trying to use cameras, and there are things called trail cameras, which are basically motion activated cameras with infrared that you can put out in the woods, like attach them to trees and things. And, whatever animals walk in front of that infrared, that passive infrared beam, or it takes a picture, a flash picture or whatever. We use a lot of audio recorders because I've never seen Bigfoot, but I'm convinced I've heard it on a few occasions because its voice really carries. And so we try to get some recordings of its vocalizations. Bigfoot obviously leaves footprints, and a lot of those have been, we make casts of the footprints. I'll try to grab one of those down here just so you can see what I'm talking about.
Ken, what does he sound like? Or he or she?
Yeah, that's a cast of a Bigfoot print, allegedly.
Amazing.
Bigfoot sounds like a primate, an ape. The most common vocalizations that people describe are howls, whoops, like a whooping sound, grunts, screams, teeth chattering, and all of these vocalizations are fairly common in the hominid world when you're talking about great apes like gorillas and chimps and humans, things like that. So what I've heard, my most convincing vocalization that I heard and recorded was back in 2003 and in North Texas, and it sounded like a grunting like an ape. It was very loud, very deep. But like if you've been to the zoo and you've listened to the gorillas and other great apes, it was very similar to that. So,
well, I can't wait to read that book as well. I want to say you have someone here who wrote a comment. Ken is the real deal, has some great books he has authored for enthusiasts and skeptics alike. Jim Dodge.
I know Jim. He's a good friend and fan and supporter of my research, and also investigates Bigfoot and different cryptids. I don't think he's crazy enough to try to do it for a living like I do, which there's not many of us that can. But yeah, well, he's bought all my books, and he's very supportive and a real smart guy.
Well, you've made this a very broad, a broad range of mysterious creatures that you've encountered, and so you have made it a whole life, right? With shows and documentaries and hosting, and then probably your own personal interests that might not even be something that you show to the rest of the world, right?
Well, it's a passion, and some people would say an obsession. It's very difficult to do full time. I mean, I encourage, like I said at the beginning of the interview, I encourage parents, tell your kids they can do whatever they want for a living if it's their dream. But I've made a lot of sacrifices in my life. It's, I live a very unconventional lifestyle, and it's very time consuming. And you're right. It's a challenge to make a living. I do interviews. I do TV shows, I write books, and I'm not in it for the money, and that's not what I'm saying. But in order to sustain myself and do this kind of work, and it costs a lot of money too, honestly, Mary Amy, when you think about travel expenses and equipment and all that stuff. So, but I love what I do, and it's every day is interesting, and I certainly get to meet a lot of interesting people and hear their experiences and stuff. So I try, travel. So it's a lot of fun.
I'm so appreciative that you joined us today. And there's so many, my mind, I couldn't even, there's so many questions that I had and not enough time. And and I like to hear the details. So I don't want to jump to something too quickly. I want to mention that you have a show that I don't know if it's out yet, Terror in the Skies, 2019.
Yeah, that's a documentary that was done by a guy named Seth Breedlove and his crew, and he's got there's a whole series of excellent cryptid documentaries called Small Town Monsters, and he covers a lot of Bigfoot type creatures and different things. And Terror in the Skies is a documentary he did about these thunderbirds that we were talking about earlier, these giant winged creatures. And it even gets into something called the Mothman, which some of your listeners may have heard of, which is kind of a strange, kind of like Dogman. It's a really strange creature with human-like features and wings and big glowing red eyes. And there have been sightings of this Mothman creature in Chicago recently, in and around Chicago, allegedly.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, that's an excellent documentary where he covers a lot of the Thunderbird, Mothman type sightings all over, really, North America, but specifically in Illinois. For whatever reason, Illinois has a lot of sightings. So that was a lot of fun to make.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that you were part of that.
Yeah, I was interviewed. There were a few of us that were interviewed that have investigated these sightings and stuff. So, yeah, that's a good one.
Cool. Okay, well, I want to say you can contact Ken. I have his website on this post, kengerhard.com. His Instagram is The Real Ken Gerhard. And you can find his link to his Facebook page on this post. And I'm so happy that you came and joined us and shared so much interesting information. Is there anything you wanted to share for people to contact you, or anything upcoming that you want to mention?
Oh gosh. Well, sadly, like a lot of people, it's been kind of a rough year, and we've all had to kind of alter our lives temporarily a little bit. So I've just been working on a new book, and it's going to be out soon. I guess I'll go ahead and announce it. I've announced it a couple other places, but it's going to be The Essential Guide to the Loch Ness Monster. So it's kind of the follow-up to The Essential Guide to Bigfoot. So again, if you're interested in the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster, it's got a lot of good information in there, very accurate and objective. And not only does it cover the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland, but it also covers a lot of similar lake monsters around the world. For example, in New York and Vermont, upstate there, you have something known as the Lake Champlain Monster, or Champ, as he's called. And there are other similar creatures around the world. I'm going to be involved in a new TV series that's coming out soon, but I can't really, they don't let me say much until it's it's actually out.
Great.
But if folks are interested in, and I also have a YouTube channel, Mary Amy, and people want to look up Ken Gerhard on YouTube. I've produced some lectures and some little short videos that explain different types of cryptids and stuff. So yeah, but anyone out there that wants to get in touch with me, if you've had a sighting or an experience, or you just want to ask me a question or engage, I'm always happy to meet new people and talk about cryptozoology.
Thank you so much. And your books are available on Amazon?
Yeah, they are all on Amazon. And people can also contact me directly if they like signed or autographed books. I can do those directly through social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. So,
well, thank you so much, Ken. And I can't wait to read your books. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you to everyone who listened in.
Thank
I
you.
hope everyone out there is feeling well and staying safe.
Yay, we're all so grateful. Be safe.
Thanks. You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Wow, I have so much to think about after that interview. Okay, I had earlier mentioned before we go, because we're out of time, we're past our time. I had mentioned the 11/11, which is November 11th today, and I recommend that you make a wish. Here we go. Here's something else if you want to see. So they say that it's a master number. And what does this mean? It's a highly spiritual double-digit number thought to be attuned to higher realms and dimensions. So should be a wonderful day for all of us. Before we go, I wanted to, which I missed last week, I wanted to do a gemstone. So, thank you for your patience, everyone. Okay, so this gemstone is an amethyst, and it's powerful and it's protective, and it's a tumbled gemstone. It has a calming presence and produces understanding, soothing, memorable dreams. It relieves insomnia. It brings clarity and peacefulness, flows freely in mental and metaphysical dimensions, helps for that. It's a spiritual divine stone, and it helps clear and open and balance your crown chakra, which is on the top of your head. I recommend when you do get your tumbled gemstones to wash them in warm water and then lay them outside in the sun. Thank you so much for joining me. Please like my Facebook and Instagram or Twitter page. You can contact me at Mary Amy Official. I do give 15-minute session readings. So if you email me, we can set something up. I've had a few people do that. Let's construct only positive thoughts, words, and actions. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.